Pressure does not destroy your life. Your attachment does. You suffer because you cling to outcomes, opinions, expectations, and control. The tighter you hold, the heavier life becomes. But the moment you detach, something extraordinary happens. Pressure becomes information instead of fear. Obstacles become lessons instead of disasters. Your mind becomes quiet. Your decisions become sharper. This audiobook will teach you the hidden power of detachment, the skill that turns chaos into clarity and pressure into personal power. Your freedom begins the moment you stop holding on. Pressure feels real. Your heart races. Your mind refuses to slow down. Your body tightens. Your thoughts spiral from one worst-case scenario to another. Most people believe these sensations are proof that life itself has become unbearable. They blame the deadline. They blame the economy. They blame difficult people. They blame circumstances. But they are blaming the wrong thing. The greatest lie your mind has ever told you is this: pressure comes from reality. It doesn't. Pressure comes from your attachment to reality being different from what it is. That single truth has the power to change everything. Think about two people standing in the same situation. Both receive the same unexpected email from their employer. Both learn that their company is restructuring. Both face uncertainty. One person immediately panics. What if I lose my job? What will people think? My future is ruined. The other person pauses.
I don't know what's going to happen. I'll deal with it when I know more. I can handle whatever comes. The event is identical. Reality has not changed. Only attachment has. One mind is imprisoned by what it desperately wants reality to become. The other mind accepts reality as information. This is why one experiences pressure, while the other experiences clarity. Remember this throughout the entire audiobook. Pressure begins where attachment begins. Repeat it. Pressure begins where attachment begins. Again, pressure begins where attachment begins. The more tightly you grip an outcome, the heavier every obstacle feels. Imagine holding a handful of sand. Hold it gently and the sand remains in your hand. Squeeze it with all your strength and it slips through your fingers. Life works the same way. The harder you try to force certainty, approval, success, or perfection, the more anxious you become. This is why attachment creates pressure. You become emotionally dependent on something you cannot completely control. That dependency turns every uncertainty into fear. Think about how often your stress has nothing to do with what is happening right now. You're sitting in a quiet room. Nothing dangerous is happening. No one is attacking you. No emergency exists. Yet your chest feels tight. Why? Because your mind has attached itself to an imagined future. It is fighting battles that haven't happened. It is solving problems that don't exist. It is mourning losses that may never come. Reality is peaceful. Attachment is creating the pressure.
This explains why two people can experience completely different emotional lives while living under nearly identical circumstances. One person loses sleep over every opinion. The other sleeps peacefully. One person obsesses over every mistake. The other learns and moves on. One person fears rejection every day. The other simply continues doing meaningful work. The difference isn't intelligence. It isn't talent. It isn't luck. It is attachment. Many people spend their entire lives chasing control because they believe control will eliminate pressure. It never does. The more you attempt to control every outcome, the more fragile you become. Why? Because reality refuses to obey your expectations. Markets change. People leave. Plans fail. Weather changes. Health changes. Technology changes. Everything changes. Everything except one thing: your ability to choose your response. That is the only place where lasting power exists. History proves this lesson repeatedly. Elite military commanders enter situations where uncertainty is guaranteed. No battlefield has ever offered complete control. Yet the greatest leaders remain calm. Why? Because they are trained to focus on decisions, not guarantees. They understand something most people never learn. They cannot control every event. They can control their preparation. They can control their discipline. They can control their next action. Everything else belongs to reality. Professional athletes understand this too. Before a championship game, millions of people are watching. Entire careers may appear to depend on one performance.
An attached athlete thinks,
I must not fail. I cannot miss. I have to prove everyone wrong. Every movement becomes tense. Every mistake becomes catastrophic. Pressure multiplies. But the greatest champions think differently. I'll play the next point. I trust my training. I'll give everything I have. Notice the difference. One is attached to winning. The other is committed to performing. Commitment creates excellence. Attachment creates fear. That is why the calm athlete often wins, not because pressure disappeared, because attachment did. The same principle applies in business. Imagine two entrepreneurs launching identical companies. The first says, "If this business fails, my life is over." The second says, "I'll learn, improve, and build regardless of the outcome." Who will make better decisions? Who will think more clearly during setbacks? Who will recover faster after mistakes? The detached one, not because success is guaranteed, because clarity is. Pressure clouds judgment. Attachment feeds pressure. Detachment restores clarity. You have probably experienced this yourself without realizing it. Think about a conversation where you desperately wanted someone to like you. Every word felt heavy. Every silence felt uncomfortable. Every facial expression became a source of anxiety. Now compare that.
Suddenly, your words flowed naturally. You smiled more. You laughed more. You became more confident. What changed? Not your personality, not your intelligence, only your attachment. The moment attachment disappeared, pressure disappeared with it. This is one of life's greatest paradoxes. The less desperately you need something, the better you often perform. The less desperately you seek approval, the more authentic you become. The less desperately you chase success, the more focused your work becomes. The less desperately you cling to certainty, the more resilient you become. That is not coincidence. It is psychology. It is wisdom. It is freedom. Many people misunderstand detachment. They assume it means not caring. Nothing could be further from the truth. Detachment is caring deeply about your effort while refusing to make your peace dependent on the outcome. That distinction changes everything. You can love someone deeply without trying to control them. You can pursue success passionately without becoming emotionally destroyed by temporary failure. You can dream boldly without allowing uncertainty to steal today's peace. This is what emotional maturity looks like. It says, "I will give my absolute best, but my happiness will never depend entirely on the result." Read that again. "I will give my absolute best, but my happiness will never depend entirely on the result." That sentence has liberated countless lives. Every moment of your life presents two choices. You can attach yourself to outcomes you cannot control, or you can commit yourself to actions you can. One creates anxiety, the other creates strength. One creates fear, the other creates clarity. As this audiobook continues, remember the foundation upon which every chapter is built. Control your actions, release the outcome. Again, control your actions, release the outcome. One more time, control your actions, release the outcome. Because that's the key. Not controlling life, not controlling people, not controlling the future, controlling yourself. When you master that, pressure loses its grip and clarity becomes your greatest strength. There is a battle that almost every human being fights every single day. Most people don't even realize they're fighting it. It begins the moment they wake up. They want the traffic to cooperate. They want people to agree with them. They want the weather to be perfect. They want their family to understand them. They want their boss to appreciate them. They want the future to unfold exactly as they imagined. And when life refuses to obey, they suffer. Not because life is cruel, but because they have declared war on reality. Here is one of the most liberating truths you will ever hear. You do not suffer because you lack control. You suffer because you chase control where it does not exist. Repeat it. Stop chasing control. Again, stop chasing control. One more time. Stop chasing control. Because the moment you stop fighting reality, your mind finally has room to breathe.
Think about how much of your day is spent worrying about things you cannot influence. You wonder what someone else is thinking. You replay conversations that ended hours ago. You imagine every possible future. You fear mistakes that haven't happened. You try to predict tomorrow while completely missing today. Your mind becomes exhausted, not because life is difficult, because your attention is trapped in places where your power cannot reach. Imagine trying to hold back the ocean with your hands. You could spend every ounce of energy pushing against the waves. You could become stronger. You could become smarter. You could become more determined. But the ocean would never stop. Eventually, exhaustion would replace hope. Life works exactly the same way. Reality keeps moving. People keep changing. Circumstances keep shifting. Time never asks for your permission. Yet millions of people spend their entire lives trying to control what was never theirs to control, and they wonder why they feel anxious. The truth is simple. Every attempt to control the uncontrollable steals energy from the only thing you can control, yourself. Remember this sentence: the more you chase control, the less control you actually have, because your emotions become dependent on forces outside your reach. Think about relationships. One partner constantly tries to control every conversation, every decision, every opinion, every friendship, every message. At first, they believe they are creating security. In reality, they are creating fear. The harder they hold on, the faster trust disappears.
The relationship becomes a prison, not because love is weak, because control replaced respect. Now think about the workplace. An employee becomes obsessed with getting promoted. Every meeting becomes a test. Every piece of feedback feels personal. Every compliment to someone else feels like an attack. Soon they stop enjoying the work itself. Their happiness depends entirely on one decision that belongs to someone else. Can you see the trap? They have handed over their emotional well-being to circumstances they cannot command. No wonder they feel pressure. No wonder they lose sleep. No wonder every setback feels unbearable, because they are chasing control instead of building character. The strongest people think differently. They wake up each morning and ask one question: what is mine to control today? Not next year, not next month, today. Their attitude, their effort, their discipline, their honesty, their patience, their courage, their focus. Everything else becomes secondary. This mindset changes everything. Imagine two students preparing for the same important exam. The first spends weeks worrying about the questions. What if they're too difficult? What if I fail? What if everyone scores higher than me? Fear consumes every study session. The second student thinks differently. I cannot control the questions. I can control how well I prepare. I will give my best effort today. Who studies with greater clarity? Who sleeps better? Who performs with greater confidence? The answer is obvious. Preparation belongs to you. Results never completely do. That is why successful people become obsessed with process instead of outcome. They know something extraordinary. The process is always available. The outcome never is. Professional investors understand this principle better than most. Markets rise. Markets fall. Economies expand. Economies collapse. No investor controls any of it. The emotional investor panics. They chase every headline, every rumor, every prediction. They buy from fear. They sell from fear. Their emotions become prisoners of the market. But disciplined investors understand another truth. I cannot control the market. I can control my decisions. I can control my patience. I can control my strategy. And over time, calm beats panic. Discipline beats emotion. Consistency beats prediction. The same lesson applies to leadership. Great leaders never waste energy demanding that everyone behave exactly as they wish. Instead, they create environments where people naturally want to contribute. They influence, they inspire, they communicate. But they never confuse influence with control, because they understand that every human being ultimately chooses for themselves. Trying to force people rarely creates loyalty. It creates resistance. This is true in families, in friendships, in business, in every part of life. You cannot force respect. You earn it. You cannot force love. You nurture it. You cannot force trust.
You build it. The moment you understand this, pressure begins to disappear because you stop carrying responsibilities that were never yours. One of the greatest sources of anxiety is trying to write tomorrow's story before today is finished. People demand certainty. They want guarantees. They want absolute security. But certainty has never existed. Not for kings, not for billionaires, not for philosophers, not for anyone. The future has always belonged to uncertainty. The only difference is how people respond to that uncertainty. Some panic, some prepare. Preparation creates confidence. Control creates illusion. Remember that. Preparation creates confidence. Control creates illusion. Again, preparation creates confidence. Control creates illusion. One more time. Preparation creates confidence. Control creates illusion. Imagine a sailor crossing the sea. Can the sailor control the wind? No. Can the sailor control the waves? No. Can the sailor control the weather? No. So why does an experienced sailor remain calm? Because the sailor focuses on adjusting the sails rather than arguing with the storm. That is wisdom. Life is the ocean. Circumstances are the wind. Your character is the sail. You cannot command the weather, but you can always choose how you respond to it. That is real control. Not control over the world, control over yourself. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus expressed this idea centuries ago, and it remains timeless. Some things are within your control. Most things are not. Confuse the two, and suffering becomes inevitable. Separate the two, and freedom begins.
As you move through your life after this chapter, pause whenever stress appears. Ask yourself one simple question. Is this truly within my control? If the answer is yes, act. If the answer is no, release it. Not because it doesn't matter, but because your peace matters more. Never forget the lesson of this chapter. You cannot control people. You cannot control the past. You cannot control tomorrow. But you can always control your response, and that changes everything. So say it with conviction. You cannot control everything. You can always control yourself. Again, you cannot control everything. You can always control yourself. That's the key. Not controlling life, mastering yourself. Because the person who masters themselves never has to fear a world they cannot control. One of the greatest misunderstandings about detachment is the belief that it means giving up. People hear the word detachment and imagine someone who no longer cares, someone who has lost ambition, someone who avoids responsibility, someone who walks away from challenges because they are afraid to fail. Nothing could be further from the truth. Detachment is not quitting. Detachment is not laziness. Detachment is not emotional numbness. Detachment is not weakness. Detachment is strength without desperation. Read that again. Detachment is strength without desperation. Repeat it. Care deeply, cling lightly. Again, care deeply, cling lightly. That is strength. Most people live with the opposite mindset. They cling deeply and care wisely only after everything falls apart. They attach their identity to a promotion,
To a relationship, to a business, to a title, to money, to the opinions of strangers. Slowly, without noticing, they begin believing one dangerous lie. If I lose this, I lose myself. That sentence has broken more hearts than failure ever could, because the moment your identity depends on one thing, that thing owns you. Imagine a mountain climber standing on the edge of a cliff. The experienced climber grips the rope firmly, but never panics. Every movement is calm. Every decision is deliberate. Now imagine another climber who becomes terrified. He squeezes the rope so tightly that his muscles begin to shake. His breathing becomes rapid. His judgment disappears. Who is actually safer? The calm climber. Not because he cares less, because he trusts more. The rope is the same. The mountain is the same. Only attachment is different. Life follows the same principle. The harder you emotionally squeeze your future, the more unstable your present becomes. You have probably experienced this before. Perhaps you wanted a job so badly that every interview question felt like life or death. Instead of thinking clearly, your mind
Became crowded with fear. What if I fail? What if they reject me? I need this. I cannot lose. Notice those words. Need, cannot lose. These are the words of attachment. They create pressure. Now imagine someone walking into the same interview with another mindset. I've prepared. I'll give my best. If this opportunity is right, wonderful. If not, I'll keep moving. Who speaks with greater confidence? Who listens more carefully? Who answers more naturally? Usually, the detached person. Not because they wanted the job less, because they feared losing it less. This is one of life's greatest paradoxes. The less desperate you become, the more powerful you appear. People trust calm confidence. They hesitate around emotional desperation. Whether in business, relationships, leadership, or personal growth, desperation pushes people away. Detachment attracts opportunity. Remember that. Desperation repels, detachment attracts. Again, desperation repels, detachment attracts. History gives us countless examples. Consider great inventors. Thomas Edison tested thousands of materials before creating a practical light bulb. If every failed attempt had destroyed his identity, he would have stopped after the first 100. Instead, he viewed failure differently. Each experiment was information, not condemnation. That is detachment. He cared passionately about the mission, but he refused to let temporary failure define him. The same principle applies to elite athletes. The world's greatest tennis player loses matches. The greatest football clubs lose finals. Olympic champions lose races. But champions return. Why? Because they are attached to improvement, not perfection.
Every setback becomes a lesson instead of a personal attack. That is emotional freedom. Many people think passion requires attachment. It doesn't. Passion requires commitment. Attachment requires dependency. There is a world of difference. Commitment says, I'll keep showing up. Attachment says, I must win today. Commitment says, I'll improve. Attachment says, I must impress everyone. Commitment creates consistency. Attachment creates anxiety. Never confuse the two. One builds greatness, the other destroys peace. Think about relationships. Someone who is attached constantly asks, do they still love me? Why didn't they reply? What if they leave? What if someone else is better? Every silence becomes a threat. Every disagreement becomes a crisis. Every misunderstanding becomes proof that disaster is coming. Now compare that with someone who loves deeply but remains detached. They communicate honestly. They invest fully. They appreciate every moment. But they also understand one truth. Love cannot be forced. Trust cannot be demanded. People must choose freely. This understanding creates peace, not because loss becomes impossible, but because fear no longer controls the relationship. Real love is not possession. Real love is presence. Repeat that. Real love is not possession. Real love is presence. That is strength. Some people avoid detachment because they fear becoming indifferent, but indifference and detachment are not the same. Indifference says, I don't care. Detachment says, I care enough to give my best, but I refuse to destroy myself over what I cannot control.
Can you feel the difference? One closes the heart, the other frees it. Detachment allows you to celebrate success without becoming arrogant. It allows you to experience failure without becoming hopeless. It allows you to love without becoming possessive. It allows you to dream without becoming desperate. That is emotional maturity. The strongest leaders understand this. When a project succeeds, they remain humble. When a project fails, they remain steady. Why? Because they know their value does not rise and fall with every result. Their identity lives deeper than achievement. This is why they recover faster than everyone else. Recovery is impossible when your ego is attached to perfection. Recovery becomes natural when your purpose is attached to growth. Ask yourself this question: What are you holding so tightly that it has begun controlling you? Is it success, money, recognition, someone's approval, a relationship, a dream? Whatever it is, look at it honestly. You do not need to stop caring. You need to stop clinging. There is a difference, a profound difference. From this day forward, replace one sentence in your life. Stop saying, "I have to make this happen." Start saying, "I will give everything I have, then I'll let life unfold." That single change transforms pressure into peace, because effort belongs to you, outcomes do not. As long as you confuse the two, stress will dominate your life. But the moment you separate them, freedom begins.
So remember the lesson of this chapter. Whenever fear tries to convince you that letting go means surrender, it doesn't. Letting go is not surrender. It is trust. It is courage. It is wisdom. Say it one last time. Care deeply. Cling lightly. Again, care deeply. Cling lightly. That's the key. Because the strongest people are not those who hold on to everything. The strongest people are those who know exactly when to let go. There is a silent thief that steals more peace than failure ever could. It works quietly. It hides inside ordinary thoughts. Most people never notice it, yet it drains their energy every single day. Its name is expectation. Not goals, not ambition, not hard work. Expectation. There is a difference. Goals give you direction. Expectations demand guarantees. Goals inspire action. Expectations demand certainty. Goals make you grow. Expectations make you suffer. Remember that. Goals create purpose. Expectations create pressure. Again, goals create purpose. Expectations create pressure. Every morning, millions of people wake up carrying invisible contracts with the world. My boss should appreciate me. My partner should understand me. My children should always listen. My friends should always support me. My hard work should always be rewarded. My plans should never fail. Notice the word should. One small word, an enormous burden. Because life has never promised to obey your expectations. The moment reality refuses to follow your script, disappointment arrives. Not because reality is wrong, because expectation was too rigid. Imagine walking into a restaurant expecting the perfect meal. You expect perfect service, perfect timing, perfect taste, perfect atmosphere. Now imagine that the food arrives 10 minutes late. Nothing terrible has happened, yet frustration appears immediately. Why? Because reality failed to match expectation. Now imagine walking into the same restaurant with a different mindset. I hope the experience is good. If something goes wrong, I'll adapt. Suddenly, the same delay feels insignificant. The food hasn't changed. Reality hasn't changed. Only expectation has. And because expectation changed, peace remained. This is one of the greatest lessons of emotional freedom. Disappointment is often the distance between expectation and reality. The greater the expectation, the greater the disappointment. Many people unknowingly build impossible expectations for themselves. I should never make mistakes. I should always feel motivated. I should already be successful. I should never feel afraid. Every one of those expectations becomes another weapon pointed at their own peace. Think about social media. You scroll through carefully edited lives, perfect holidays, perfect relationships, perfect businesses, perfect smiles, perfect success. Without noticing, your mind begins creating expectations. My life should look like that.
I should be further ahead. I should own more. I should achieve more. Soon, you stop appreciating your own progress. Comparison becomes your daily habit. Gratitude disappears. Not because your life became worse, but because expectation became bigger. The mind was never designed to carry endless comparisons. It was designed to experience the present moment. Every expectation pulls your attention away from now. It whispers, "I'll finally be happy when I get promoted, when I lose weight, when I earn more money, when I buy the house, when people respect me, when life becomes easier." Listen carefully. That day never comes, because once one expectation is fulfilled, another immediately replaces it. This is called the arrival illusion. You believe happiness lives somewhere ahead, but every destination simply creates another destination. This is why people who achieve extraordinary success can still feel empty. The achievement wasn't the problem, expectation was. They believed one result would permanently satisfy them. It never could. No external achievement can permanently quiet an internal addiction to expectation. Think about relationships. A couple falls in love. At first, appreciation comes naturally. Then expectations slowly replace gratitude. You should know what I'm thinking. You should never disappoint me. You should change. You should make me happy. Every expectation quietly adds another weight to the relationship. Eventually, love becomes obligation. Appreciation becomes criticism. Presence becomes pressure. Healthy relationships don't survive because people are perfect. They survive because expectations are replaced with communication, patience, and acceptance.
Acceptance is not settling. Acceptance is seeing reality clearly before trying to improve it. Without acceptance, every conversation becomes conflict. Every mistake becomes proof of failure. Every disagreement becomes personal. This happens at work, too. An employee works hard expecting immediate recognition. Days pass, weeks pass, months pass. Recognition doesn't come. Frustration grows, resentment grows, motivation disappears. Now imagine another employee. They focus on becoming more skilled every day. They welcome feedback. They improve their craft. Recognition is appreciated, but not required. Who becomes stronger over time? The one attached to growth, not the one attached to applause. Because applause belongs to others. Growth belongs to you. Remember that. Applause belongs to others. Growth belongs to you. Again, applause belongs to others. Growth belongs to you. One of the greatest expectations we carry is the expectation that life should be fair. But history tells a different story. Good people experience hardship. Kind people face betrayal. Hardworking people experience failure. Unfairness has always existed. Accepting this truth does not make you pessimistic. It makes you resilient. Because you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can this teach me? That single question transforms suffering into wisdom. Expectations also exhaust the mind because they create endless mental rehearsals. You imagine conversations before they happen. You rehearse arguments. You predict rejection. You anticipate criticism. You build imaginary futures that never arrive. By the time reality appears, you are already emotionally exhausted. Not because life was difficult. Because your imagination never stopped working. Presence is the antidote. Presence says, this moment deserves my full attention. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, now. When you become fully present, expectation loses its grip, because the present moment asks nothing from you except awareness. It doesn't require prediction. It doesn't require perfection. It only requires participation. That is freedom. From today onward, whenever you hear the word should inside your own mind, pause. Ask yourself, is this a healthy goal or an unhealthy expectation? If it inspires action, keep it. If it creates pressure, release it. You do not need fewer dreams. You need fewer demands placed upon reality. Dream boldly, work relentlessly, hope sincerely, but never expect life to obey your plans, because life owes you nothing. And strangely, that truth gives you everything. It gives you flexibility. It gives you resilience. It gives you peace. Never forget the lesson of this chapter. Expectation creates suffering. Presence creates peace. Again, expectation creates suffering. Presence creates peace. One more time. Expectation creates suffering. Presence creates peace. That's the key. Not lowering your standards, not abandoning your dreams. Simply releasing the belief that happiness depends on life unfolding exactly as you imagined. Because the moment you stop demanding perfection from reality, your exhausted mind finally learns how to rest. One of the heaviest burdens you will ever carry is not failure. It is not rejection. It is not criticism. It is the endless need to make everyone understand you. Every day, millions of people waste enormous amounts of emotional energy trying to explain themselves, trying to justify their choices, trying to defend their dreams, trying to correct every misunderstanding, trying to prove they are good enough. But here is a truth that changes everything. Not everyone has to understand you. Read that again. Not everyone has to understand you. The moment you accept this, you become free. Most emotional exhaustion does not come from what people say. It comes from your desperate need to change what they think. Someone misunderstands your intentions. You replay the conversation for hours. Someone criticizes your decision. You immediately begin preparing a defense. Someone questions your character. You feel compelled to explain every detail. Why? Because your peace has become attached to their opinion. Remember this. The moment someone else's opinion controls your emotions, they begin controlling your life. That is why seeking constant approval is emotional slavery. Repeat it. Their opinion is not your identity. Again, their opinion is not your identity. One more time. Their opinion is not your identity. The strongest people in history were often misunderstood. Innovators were called foolish. Artists were called unrealistic. Entrepreneurs were called reckless. Leaders were called dangerous. Visionaries were called impossible dreamers. If they had stopped every time someone misunderstood them, the world would never have changed. Think about the Wright brothers. Most people laughed at the idea that human beings could fly. Imagine if they had spent every day trying to convince every skeptic. They would have had no time left to build the airplane. They understood something profound. Results speak louder than explanations. You do not need everyone's agreement. You need consistent action. Remember that. Stop explaining, start building. Again, stop explaining, start building. Every minute spent arguing with people who refuse to understand you is a minute stolen from creating the life you actually want. There is another uncomfortable truth. People do not see you as you are. They see you through the lens of their own experiences. Someone who distrusts people may suspect your motives. Someone who is insecure may interpret your confidence as arrogance. Someone who fears change may call your ambition selfish. Their interpretation is shaped by their story, not yours. Can you control that? No. Then why surrender your peace to it? Imagine standing in front of 10 mirrors. Each mirror is slightly different. One stretches your reflection. One makes you look shorter. Another changes the colors. Another bends the image completely. Which reflection is the real you? None of them. They are only distorted perspectives. People's opinions work exactly the same way. Every person sees only a reflection filtered through their own beliefs, fears, expectations, and experiences. So why spend your life chasing perfect understanding? It cannot exist, because no two people see the world exactly the same way. This is why emotionally mature people stop asking, how do I make everyone understand me? Instead, they ask, am I acting according to my values? That is a far better question, because values belong to you, opinions belong to others. One is within your control, the other never will be. Many people remain trapped in careers they dislike, relationships that drain them, dreams they secretly abandoned, because they fear one thing: what will people think? Those 5 words have imprisoned countless lives. People stay silent because of them. People delay their dreams because of them. People pretend to be someone else because of them. But ask yourself honestly, how many of those people will still be thinking about your choices 5 years from now? Very few. Everyone is too busy living their own lives. Most people are not analyzing you nearly as much as you imagine.
That is one of the greatest freedoms you can discover. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack filled with stones. Each stone has a label: approval, validation, recognition, acceptance. Every time you try to satisfy everyone, another stone is added. Eventually, the weight becomes unbearable. Now imagine removing those stones one by one. You stop explaining every decision. You stop defending every mistake. You stop correcting every rumor. You stop chasing everyone's approval. Suddenly, you can breathe again. That is what emotional freedom feels like. It is not arrogance. It is not selfishness. It is peace. Consider a successful business owner launching a new idea. Some customers love it. Some criticize it. Some misunderstand it completely. If the owner spends every day trying to satisfy every voice, the business stops growing. Instead, wise leaders listen to useful feedback, ignore unnecessary noise, and continue improving. Notice the difference. They remain open, but they are not controlled. That is detachment. The same principle applies in relationships. Not every disagreement requires a debate. Not every accusation deserves a defense. Not every misunderstanding requires clarification. Sometimes silence protects your peace better than another explanation ever could.
Silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is confidence, because confidence does not feel obligated to win every argument. Confidence knows that truth does not become stronger because it is repeated louder. There will always be people who misunderstand your kindness, your ambition, your boundaries, your decisions, your success. Let them. Those two words carry extraordinary power. Let them. Repeat them. Let them misunderstand. Again, let them misunderstand. One more time, let them misunderstand. Because your purpose is not to control every opinion. Your purpose is to live with integrity. Integrity means your actions remain consistent even when applause disappears, even when criticism grows louder, even when no one notices your effort. That is real confidence. Not confidence built on compliments, confidence built on character. Ask yourself this question. If no one applauded your next decision, would you still make it? If the answer is yes, you are becoming free, because you are acting from conviction rather than validation. The strongest people never measure their worth by public approval. They measure it by private integrity. They know something the world constantly forgets. Your reputation belongs to other people. Your character belongs to you. Protect your character. Do not become obsessed with your reputation. Reputation changes with rumors. Character remains through storms. Remember this, reputation is borrowed. Character is owned. Again, reputation is borrowed. Character is owned. That's the key. You cannot control what people say. You cannot control what people believe. You cannot control how people interpret your actions. But you can control whether you abandon yourself trying to convince them. Do not. Walk your path. Do your work. Keep your promises. Speak honestly. Act with integrity. And when someone chooses to misunderstand you, smile. Take a breath. Keep moving. Because the day you stop needing everyone to understand you is the day you finally begin to understand yourself. So remember the lesson of this chapter every time you feel the urge to explain your worth. Their opinion is not your identity. Let them misunderstand. Keep moving. That is freedom. There is a kind of strength that makes no noise. It does not argue. It does not rush. It does not demand attention. Yet it is stronger than anger, stronger than fear, stronger than pride. It is called silence. Not the silence of avoiding problems, not the silence of surrender, the silence that comes from mastering yourself. Most people believe power belongs to the loudest voice, the fastest response, the quickest comeback, but life teaches a different lesson. The strongest mind is rarely the noisiest. It is the calmest. Remember this. Silence is not weakness. Silence is self-control. Again, silence is not weakness. Silence is self-control. Every poor decision begins with the same pattern. Something happens. Someone criticizes you. Someone insults you. A plan falls apart. You receive disappointing news. Immediately, emotion takes over. Your heart beats faster. Your breathing changes. Your thoughts become louder. Your ego whispers, reply now, defend yourself, make them regret it, prove them wrong. Most people obey those voices, and minutes later, they regret the words they cannot take back. This is why emotional reactions are so expensive. One sentence spoken in anger can destroy years of trust. One impulsive decision can erase months of progress. One emotional message can damage a relationship forever. The problem is not emotion itself. The problem is acting while emotion is in control. That is why silence matters. Silence interrupts emotion. Silence gives wisdom time to arrive. Repeat this. Pause, observe, respond, never react. Again, pause, observe, respond, never react. Those 4 steps can save your career, your marriage, your friendships, your peace. Imagine driving a car down a busy road. Suddenly, another driver cuts in front of you. Without thinking, you become angry. You shout, you speed up, you try to prove a point. Now your emotions are driving the vehicle instead of your hands. A few seconds of anger can create consequences that last a lifetime. Now imagine another driver, the same situation, the same reckless driver. But instead of reacting, they take one slow breath. They realize, I cannot control their behavior. I can control mine. The danger passes. Peace remains. The event was identical. The response changed everything. Silence is that breath between the event and your decision. It is the space where wisdom lives. The world's greatest leaders understand this. During moments of crisis, people look for calm, not panic. When a company faces financial trouble, employees watch the leader's face.
When a family experiences hardship, children watch the parents. When a nation faces uncertainty, citizens watch their leaders. If the leader reacts emotionally, fear spreads. If the leader remains calm, confidence spreads. Calm is contagious. So is panic. Choose carefully. Many people believe silence means they are losing. They think, if I don't answer immediately, they'll think I'm weak. If I don't defend myself, they'll win. But strength is not measured by how quickly you speak. Strength is measured by how completely you control yourself before speaking. There is enormous power in refusing to argue with every opinion. Not every insult deserves a response. Not every accusation deserves your attention. Not every invitation to conflict deserves your participation. Some battles become victories the moment you refuse to fight them. Remember this. Every argument requires 2 participants. You always control one of them. History offers powerful examples. Think about Abraham Lincoln. Throughout his leadership, he was criticized relentlessly. Newspapers mocked him. Political opponents attacked him. Many expected immediate retaliation. Instead, Lincoln often wrote angry letters, then never sent them. He allowed emotion to leave his body before his words entered the world. That habit protected both his leadership and his relationships. That is wisdom. The first version of your emotional response is rarely your wisest one. Silence gives you access to the better version. The same principle applies in everyday life. Someone sends you an offensive message. You immediately begin typing. Delete. Rewrite. Delete again. You feel the urge to press send. Pause. Walk away. Return later. Read it again. Suddenly, the message no longer feels necessary. Silence saved you from yourself. How many regrets could have been avoided by waiting 1 hour, 1 day, 1 deep breath? Far more than most people realize. Silence also creates clarity because it allows observation. People reveal themselves over time. If you constantly interrupt, constantly defend, constantly explain, you never truly see who people are. Quiet people notice details others miss. They hear what is not being said. They observe patterns. They recognize character. Because while others are busy speaking, they are learning. There is an old saying, wise people understand more than they say. Foolish people say more than they understand. There is deep truth in those words. Silence is one of the greatest teachers available to you. Spend time alone without distractions, without music, without constant notifications, without endless opinions. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Your mind will race. Old worries will appear. Unfinished conversations will return. Do not run away. Stay. Because underneath the noise, clarity is waiting. Most people are terrified of silence because silence introduces them to themselves. Without distraction, without entertainment, without constant stimulation, they finally hear their own thoughts. Many spend years avoiding that meeting, but every breakthrough begins there. You cannot understand your life if you never listen to your own mind. Silence is where self-awareness grows. It is where priorities become clear. It is where unnecessary fears begin to disappear. Think about nature. A lake becomes clear only after the water becomes still. If the surface is constantly disturbed, you cannot see beneath it.
Your mind works exactly the same way. Constant reaction keeps the water moving. Silence allows everything to settle. Then clarity appears naturally. No force required, only stillness. Ask yourself honestly, how many of your biggest mistakes happened because you waited too long, or because you acted too quickly? For most people, the answer is obvious. Impulsive words, impulsive purchases, impulsive relationships, impulsive decisions. Emotion rushed ahead of wisdom. Do not let that happen again. Build a new habit. Whenever strong emotion appears, pause. Take one deep breath. Count slowly to 10. Ask yourself, will this decision still matter 1 year from now? If the answer is no, protect your peace. If the answer is yes, respond with intention, never with impulse. From today onward, become comfortable with silence. Allow pauses in conversations. Think before answering. Listen completely before speaking. Do not fear empty space. Some of the greatest truths arrive there. Remember the lesson of this chapter. Pause.
Pause. Observe. Respond. Never react. Again. Pause. Observe. Respond. Never react. That's the key. Because clarity does not shout. Wisdom does not rush. Power does not panic. The strongest mind is not the one that always has something to say. It is the one that knows exactly when silence is the most powerful response. Pain is unavoidable. No one escapes it. Not the strongest, not the richest, not the wisest. Every human being will experience loss, failure, rejection, disappointment, loneliness, heartbreak, illness, change. Pain is part of being alive. But suffering is different. Suffering is what happens when pain meets resistance. Read that again. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Again, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Most people spend their lives fighting reality. They argue with what has already happened. This shouldn't have happened. This isn't fair. Why me? If only I had. Those thoughts feel natural, but they create a prison. Because no amount of resistance can rewrite yesterday. The more you resist reality, the more reality controls you. Imagine being caught in quicksand. Your instinct tells you to fight, to struggle, to push harder. But the harder you fight, the deeper you sink. The only way to survive is to stop resisting, to become calm, to move wisely. Pain works the same way. The harder you fight the existence of pain, the more deeply it pulls you into suffering. Remember this, what you resist persists. Again, what you resist
Persists. One more time. What you resist persists. Think about a broken relationship. Someone leaves your life. The pain is real. No philosophy can erase it. No motivational quote can remove it overnight. But then something else begins. You replay every conversation. You imagine different endings. You ask questions that have no answers. You refuse to accept what has already happened. Weeks become months. Months become years. The relationship ended once, but your resistance forces you to relive it thousands of times. The original pain lasted a moment. Resistance created the suffering. Now imagine another person facing the same loss. They cry, they grieve, they acknowledge their heartbreak. They do not pretend everything is fine. But eventually they say, "It happened. I cannot change it. I can only choose what happens next." Notice the difference. They are not escaping pain. They are accepting reality. Acceptance is not weakness. Acceptance is the beginning of healing. Many people confuse acceptance with surrender. They believe accepting reality means approving of it. It doesn't. Acceptance simply means seeing reality exactly as it is, without denial, without
Fantasy. Without argument. You cannot solve a problem you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot heal from a wound you pretend doesn't exist. Acceptance is where healing begins. History is filled with people who transformed pain into purpose. Consider Nelson Mandela. He spent 27 years in prison. 27 years. Most people would have allowed bitterness to consume them. Most would have spent every day feeding hatred. Mandela chose something different. He refused to let suffering define his identity. He allowed pain to teach him patience, compassion, perspective. When he finally walked free, his body left the prison, but his mind had already escaped years earlier. That is the power of refusing to resist reality. Life also teaches through failure. Think about a child learning to walk. The child falls, again and again and again. No one calls the child a failure. Why? Because falling is understood as part of learning. Now look at adults. One failed business, one rejected application, one difficult conversation, one public mistake. Suddenly they declare, "I'm not good enough. I'm finished. I'll never try again." What changed? Not failure, only interpretation. Children see failure as education. Adults often see it as identity. Never confuse the two. Failure is an event. It is never your identity. Repeat that. Failure is an event. It is not your identity. Again, failure is an event. It is not your identity. Every painful experience carries two gifts. The first is obvious. It hurts. The second is hidden. It teaches. The lesson depends entirely on your willingness to learn. A financial setback can teach discipline. A betrayal can teach discernment. A rejection can teach resilience. A mistake can teach wisdom. But only if you stop asking, "Why did this happen?" and begin asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That question changes everything. Because pain without reflection becomes bitterness. Pain with reflection becomes wisdom. Think about athletes. Muscles grow only after experiencing stress. The discomfort is not evidence of weakness. It is evidence of adaptation. Your character grows in exactly the same way. Challenges stretch your patience. Loss strengthens your gratitude. Failure develops humility. Hardship reveals courage you never knew you possessed. Comfort rarely changes people. Difficulty often does. This does not mean you should seek pain. It means you should not waste it. Every painful season offers an opportunity. Either become more bitter or become more wise. The choice is always yours. Many people carry emotional wounds for decades because they refuse to feel them. They distract themselves constantly. More work, more entertainment, more scrolling, more noise. Anything to avoid sitting quietly with their emotions. But buried pain never disappears. It simply waits. Waiting to appear during an argument. Waiting to appear in another relationship. Waiting to appear in moments of stress. Healing requires courage. The courage to sit with discomfort. The courage to cry. The courage to admit, "Yes, this hurt me." Real strength is not pretending nothing affects you. Real strength is feeling everything, without allowing it to destroy you. Remember this. Feel it, learn from it, release it. Again, feel it, learn from it, release it. One more time. Feel it, learn from it, release it. Forgiveness is another lesson pain teaches. Many people misunderstand forgiveness. They believe forgiving someone means saying what happened was acceptable. It doesn't. Forgiveness means refusing to carry the weight forever. Holding anger is like carrying a burning coal while waiting to throw it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Forgiveness does not free the past. It frees you. Sometimes the person you need to forgive is not someone else. Sometimes it is yourself. For the mistakes you made, for the opportunities you missed, for the words you wish you could take back. You cannot grow while constantly punishing yourself for yesterday. Learn. Apologize if necessary. Make amends where possible. Then move forward. Growth requires movement, not endless self-condemnation. Ask yourself today, what pain have I been resisting? What lesson have I been avoiding? What burden have I carried long enough? Do not answer quickly. Sit with those questions, because somewhere inside your greatest struggle, there is a teacher waiting to be heard. The pain may not leave immediately. Healing rarely happens overnight, but the moment you stop fighting reality, the journey changes. The wound slowly becomes wisdom. The scar becomes strength. the memory becomes perspective, and what once nearly destroyed you becomes the very thing that prepares you for the life ahead.
Never forget the lesson of this chapter. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Feel it, learn from it, release it. That's the key. Because pain is not your enemy, resistance is. The moment you stop resisting what has already happened, pain stops being your prison and starts becoming your greatest teacher. Who are you when everything is taken away? Not your job, not your income, not your reputation, not your followers, not your possessions, not your title. Who are you when none of those things can speak for you? Most people never ask themselves this question. They spend years building a life, but never build themselves. They build careers, they build businesses, they build social status, they build impressive lifestyles. Yet beneath all of it, their identity remains fragile. Why? Because it depends on things that can disappear. Money can disappear. Relationships can end. Companies can fail. Health can change. Popularity can fade. The world can take almost everything from you. But there is one thing it cannot take: the person you have become. That is why your identity is your greatest investment. Remember this. Build your character before you build your image. Again, build your character before you build your image. One more.
Time. Build your character before you build your image. Many people spend their entire lives asking one silent question: what do I need to feel valuable? Some answer, I need more money. Others say, I need success. Some believe, I need everyone to like me. Others chase beauty, power, recognition. But every answer begins with the same dangerous word: need. The moment your identity needs something outside yourself, you give that thing power over your emotions. Think about a person whose happiness depends entirely on praise. The moment someone compliments them, they feel confident. The moment someone criticizes them, they feel worthless. Did they actually change? No. Only the opinion around them changed. Their identity became a puppet controlled by other people. That is not confidence. That is dependency. Real confidence never asks, who approves of me today? Real confidence asks, did I live according to my values today? There is a world of difference. One depends on applause. The other depends on integrity. Integrity never requires an audience. Imagine a magnificent oak tree standing in the middle of a storm. The wind howls, rain falls, branches shake violently, yet the tree remains standing. Why? Because its strength is not above the ground. Its strength is beneath it, its roots. People work the opposite way. They polish the branches, they decorate the leaves, they paint the trunk, but they ignore the roots. The roots are your values, your discipline, your honesty, your patience, your courage, your humility.
When your roots are deep, storms become survivable. When your roots are shallow, even gentle winds feel dangerous. Never forget this. Strong roots create stable lives. Again, strong roots create stable lives. History repeatedly proves this principle. Consider the life of Viktor Frankl. Everything familiar was stripped away: his home, his possessions, his career, his freedom. Even in unimaginable hardship, he discovered one truth that no one could steal: the freedom to choose his attitude. His identity no longer depended on comfort, it depended on character. That insight transformed millions of lives. Because once you understand that your deepest value comes from within, external circumstances lose their power to define you. Look at successful people who lose everything financially. Some never recover. Others rebuild even stronger. Why? The money wasn't the source of their identity. Their habits were. Their discipline was. Their mindset was. They understood something profound. Wealth can disappear. The ability to create value cannot. That is why they rise again. Identity always produces behavior. Behavior eventually produces results. Most people chase results. Wise people strengthen identity. Ask yourself, which sentence sounds stronger?
I want to become successful, or I am someone who creates value every day. The first depends on the future. The second transforms your present. Identity changes actions. Actions change destiny. Many people also build identities around roles. I am my profession. I am my relationship. I am my achievements. But what happens when those roles change? Retirement arrives. Children grow up. Businesses close.
Relationships end. Suddenly they ask, who am I now? The answer should never depend entirely on a role. Roles change. Character remains. This is why emotionally resilient people adapt faster than everyone else. They understand they can lose a position without losing themselves. They can lose a title without losing dignity. They can lose money without losing purpose, because their identity was never built upon temporary things. Think about a mirror. Every morning you look into it. Sometimes your reflection looks tired, sometimes energetic, sometimes older than yesterday. But the mirror does not decide your worth. It only reflects your appearance. The world works the same way. Success reflects performance. Money reflects financial circumstances. Popularity reflects public opinion. None of those things define your value as a human being. They are reflections, not identity. Stop confusing the mirror with the person standing in front of it. One of the greatest traps of modern life is comparison. You compare your salary, your home, your appearance, your progress, your relationships. Every comparison silently whispers, you are not enough. But enough according to whom? Someone will always earn more. Someone will always own more. Someone will always receive more attention. If your identity depends on being better than everyone else, you will spend your entire life feeling incomplete. Freedom begins when comparison ends. Remember this: comparison steals peace. Character creates peace. Again, comparison steals peace. Character creates peace. The strongest people do not wake up asking, how can I impress people today?
They ask, how can I become a better person today? Notice where their attention goes, not outward, inward. Growth becomes the goal, not applause. Every decision becomes easier because values become the compass, not popularity. Imagine walking through a forest with a compass in your hand. Storm clouds cover the sky. The path disappears. You cannot see the destination, yet you continue walking confidently. Why? Because you trust the compass. Your values are that compass: honesty, discipline, kindness, responsibility, courage. Even when life becomes uncertain, those principles continue pointing you in the right direction. People without values follow crowds. People with values follow conviction. Which life would you rather live? Ask yourself another question. If tomorrow every achievement disappeared, every possession vanished, every title was removed, would there still be someone worth respecting? If the answer is uncertain, do not panic. Simply begin building that person today. Not through bigger goals, through stronger habits. Keep your promises. Speak the truth. Do difficult things voluntarily. Stay calm under pressure.
Be generous when no one is watching. Act with integrity even when shortcuts seem easier. These actions quietly build an identity that nothing external can destroy. The greatest freedom in life is becoming someone who no longer needs constant validation to feel complete. You appreciate success, but you do not depend on it. You enjoy recognition, but you do not chase it. You welcome love, but you do not lose yourself without it. That is emotional independence. That is inner wealth. Repeat these words until they become part of your thinking. Nothing outside me completes me. Again, nothing outside me completes me. One more time. Nothing outside me completes me. Everything I truly need to become stronger already begins within me. That is the lesson of this chapter. Build an identity rooted in character. Strengthen your values every day. Protect your integrity more fiercely than your reputation. Because reputations rise and fall, circumstances come and go. Success appears and disappears, but character remains. And the person who builds an identity that needs nothing from the outside world can never truly be broken. Because when your identity belongs to your character, no storm is powerful enough to steal who you are. The world celebrates speed. Move faster, answer faster, earn faster,
grow faster, react faster. Everyone is running. Everyone is rushing. Everyone believes that moving quickly means moving ahead. But life teaches a very different lesson. The people who win in the long run are rarely the fastest. Calm wins what panic can never reach. Again, calm wins what panic can never reach. The world mistakes calmness for weakness. People assume that if you are quiet, you must be uncertain. If you pause before speaking, you must not know the answer. If you remain steady during chaos, you must not care. Nothing could be further from the truth. Calmness is not the absence of emotion. It is the mastery of emotion. It is choosing wisdom over impulse. It is choosing patience over panic. It is choosing clarity over confusion. Remember this: calm is power. Clarity is power. Reaction is weakness. Calm is power. Clarity is power. Reaction is weakness. Every major decision in your life will test this truth. When the stock market falls, some people panic and sell everything. Others remain calm. When a business struggles, some people quit immediately. Others study the problem carefully. When a relationship faces difficulty, some people react with anger. Others choose conversation. The situation may be the same. The outcome is completely different, because calm people make better decisions. Pressure narrows your vision. Calm expands it. Imagine standing in the middle of a violent storm. The wind is howling, rain blinds your eyes. You cannot see more than a few meters ahead. Now imagine that same storm ending. The sky clears, the air becomes still. Suddenly you can see the road, the mountains, the horizon. The world did not change.
Your ability to see it did. Your mind works exactly the same way. An emotional mind sees only the problem. A calm mind sees possibilities. This is why clarity always follows calmness, not before it. Never expect clear thinking while feeding emotional chaos. Give your mind stillness, then trust it to work. History proves this again and again. During moments of crisis, the leaders who changed history were rarely those who panicked. They gathered information, they listened carefully, they delayed emotional reactions, then they acted decisively. Think about a pilot flying through severe turbulence. Passengers become frightened, some scream, some panic, some imagine the worst, but the pilot remains calm. Why? Because panic has never landed an airplane safely. Training has, discipline has, clear thinking has. The pilot understands something every successful person eventually learns. Emotions are real, but they are terrible navigators. Let them inform you, never let them lead you. The same principle applies to investing. When prices rise rapidly, emotional people become greedy. They buy without thinking. When prices fall sharply, they become fearful. They sell without thinking. Their decisions follow emotion instead of strategy. Years later, they wonder why consistent success feels impossible. Now look at disciplined investors. They study, they prepare, they remain patient. They know that markets move in cycles. They refuse to let temporary emotions destroy long-term plans. Over time, their calmness becomes a competitive advantage because while everyone else is reacting, they are thinking. Life rewards thoughtful people, not impulsive ones.
This is also true in leadership. Imagine two managers facing the same problem. A major client suddenly cancels an important contract. The first manager storms into the office, raises their voice, blames the team, creates fear. No one thinks clearly. Mistakes multiply. Now imagine the second manager. They gather everyone together, they breathe, they acknowledge the problem. Then they ask, what can we learn? What are our options? What is the next best step? Notice what happened. The problem remained, but panic disappeared. And once panic disappeared, solutions began to appear. That is leadership, not controlling circumstances, controlling yourself. Many people lose opportunities because they cannot tolerate temporary discomfort. They want immediate results, immediate rewards, immediate certainty. But life does not reward impatience, it rewards consistency. Imagine planting a tree. Would you dig it up every week to check whether the roots are growing? Of course not. You water it, you protect it, you trust the process. Growth happens quietly. Success works exactly the same way. Most breakthroughs happen after long periods when nothing seems to be changing. Impatient people quit too early. Calm people stay the course. That is why they win. Remember this. Patience is not waiting. Patience is remaining steady while waiting. Again, patience is not waiting. Patience is remaining steady while waiting. One of the greatest advantages of calmness is that it protects your energy. An emotional person spends hours worrying about imaginary problems, arguing inside their own mind, replaying conversations, predicting disasters. By the time the real challenge arrives, they are already exhausted. A calm person conserves that energy. They refuse to fight imaginary battles. They save their strength for reality. That alone gives them an enormous advantage. Think about water flowing through a river. When the water rushes violently, it becomes muddy. You cannot see beneath the surface. But when the river becomes still, everything becomes visible. The rocks, the plants, the depth. Your mind behaves exactly the same way. Constant emotional movement creates confusion. Stillness creates understanding. This is why meditation, quiet reflection, and intentional pauses have transformed countless lives. Not because they remove problems, because they remove unnecessary noise. Calmness also changes the way other people respond to you. When everyone else is anxious, the calm person naturally becomes the leader. People trust emotional stability. They seek reassurance. They listen more carefully. Confidence grows around those who remain steady. Your emotional state is contagious. If you panic, others panic. If you remain composed, others begin to relax. Never underestimate the influence of your presence. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give another person is not advice. It is your calmness. Ask yourself honestly,
How many of your greatest regrets came from being too calm? Probably very few. Now ask another question. How many regrets came from reacting too quickly? The answer is probably very different. Impulsive decisions, angry words, fear-driven choices, those are rarely made from calmness. They are made from emotional storms. You do not need to become emotionless. You need to become emotionally disciplined. Feel everything. Believe everything. Act on almost nothing until your mind becomes clear. That is wisdom. From today forward, create a new habit. Whenever pressure appears, slow down instead of speeding up. Take one deep breath. Observe before deciding. Think before speaking. Listen before answering. Allow calmness to become your default response. Over weeks, months, years, that habit will completely transform your life. Because success is rarely determined by one dramatic moment. It is built through thousands of calm decisions made when everyone else chooses panic. Remember the lesson of this chapter. Calm is power. Clarity is power. Reaction is weakness. Again, calm is power. Clarity is power. Reaction is weakness. One more time. Calm is power. Clarity is power. Reaction is weakness. That's the key. Because in the short term, the loudest voices often attract attention. But in the long term, the calmest minds always build the strongest lives. Pressure may win the moment, but calmness wins the future. You have reached the final chapter, but this is not the end. It is the beginning. Everything you have heard in this audiobook has been leading to one simple truth. Freedom is not something the world gives you. Freedom is something you create within yourself. Most people spend their lives searching for freedom in the wrong places. They believe, when I earn enough money, I'll be free. When I find the perfect relationship, I'll be free. When everyone respects me, I'll be free. When life becomes easier, I'll be free. But years pass. The money comes, then more money is needed. Success arrives, then greater success becomes necessary. Recognition appears, then fear of losing it takes over. The prison changes, the prisoner remains the same. Because external success can never create internal freedom. Only detachment can. Read that again. Freedom is not found in having more. Freedom is found in needing less. Again, freedom is not found in having more. Freedom is found in needing less. This does not mean you stop dreaming.
It does not mean you stop building. It does not mean you stop achieving. It means your peace no longer depends on what you achieve. That is true freedom. Imagine two mountain climbers. Both are climbing the same mountain. Both are tired. Both face the same steep path. The first climber constantly looks at the summit. This is taking too long. What if I never make it? I'm falling behind. Every step feels heavier. Now look at the second climber. They focus on the next step. One breath, one movement, one decision.
They appreciate the view. They adjust when necessary. They keep climbing. Eventually, both may reach the summit, but only one enjoyed the journey. Life is that mountain. Detach from the summit. Commit to the next step. Remember this. Freedom lives in the next step, not the final destination. The next step. Throughout this audiobook, you have learned that pressure comes from attachment. You learned that control is an illusion. You discovered that expectations exhaust the mind. You learned that silence creates clarity, that pain becomes wisdom when accepted, that character matters more than reputation, that calmness outlasts chaos. Now it is time to live these lessons. Knowledge changes nothing. Practice changes everything. A book cannot transform your life. Only your daily actions can. So begin with something small. Tomorrow morning, before checking your phone, sit quietly for 2 minutes. Take a slow breath. Ask yourself, what is within my control today? Nothing more, nothing less. Focus only on that answer. Then act. At the end of the day, ask another question. What did I hold on to that I should have released? Perhaps it was someone's opinion. Perhaps it was a mistake. Perhaps it was fear. Perhaps it was anger. Notice it, then let it go. Day after day, this simple habit will reshape your mind. Build another habit. Whenever life
disappoints you, pause before reacting. Take one slow breath. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this teaching me? That single question transforms obstacles into education. Another habit. Whenever someone criticizes you, resist the urge to defend yourself immediately. Listen. Reflect. If the criticism is true, grow. If it is false, release it. Either way, protect your peace. Another habit. Spend time in silence every day. Not because silence removes problems, because silence removes confusion. When the mind becomes quiet, wisdom speaks. Another habit. Express gratitude before expectation. Every morning, remind yourself of 3 things already present in your life: your health, your family, your opportunities, your ability to learn. Gratitude weakens attachment because it reminds you that abundance already exists. Remember this. Gratitude replaces scarcity. Presence replaces pressure. Again, gratitude replaces scarcity. Presence replaces pressure. The detached person is not cold. The detached person loves deeply, works passionately, dreams boldly, serves generously. But they refuse to become emotionally imprisoned by outcomes they cannot control. They understand a timeless truth. Everything in life is temporary. Success is temporary. Failure is temporary. Pleasure is temporary. Pain is temporary. Youth is temporary. Even life itself is temporary. Knowing this does not create fear. It creates appreciation. You stop taking moments for granted. You stop delaying joy. You stop waiting for the perfect time. You begin living now. That is what detachment gives you. Presence, peace, perspective. Imagine standing on the shore of the ocean.
You watch each wave rise, then fall. Another arrives, then disappears. You do not chase the wave. You do not mourn its passing. You simply witness its movement. Thoughts are waves. Emotions are waves. Success is a wave. Failure is a wave. Nothing stays forever. Your job is not to hold the ocean still.
Your job is to learn how to stand peacefully on the shore. That is emotional mastery. There will still be difficult days. There will still be setbacks. People will disappoint you. Plans will change. Loss will arrive. But you will not break as easily, because your identity no longer depends on perfect circumstances. Your peace no longer depends on perfect outcomes. Your confidence no longer depends on perfect approval. It comes from something much deeper, from character, from discipline, from acceptance, from wisdom. Ask yourself one final question. If everything outside you changed tomorrow, would your inner peace survive? If the answer is no, begin building it today. If the answer is yes, protect it with everything you have, because nothing is more valuable. Never forget the greatest lesson of this audiobook. You cannot always choose your circumstances. You can always choose your response. You cannot always control the outcome. You can always control your effort. You cannot stop change. You can stop resisting it. Repeat these words until they become part of your identity. Release. Trust. Act. Repeat. Again. Release. Trust. Act. Repeat. One more time. Release. Trust. Act.
That is the rhythm of a peaceful life. That is the discipline of emotional freedom. That is the practice of detachment. As you close this audiobook, remember that nothing extraordinary is required from you. You do not need to become someone else. You simply need to stop carrying what was never yours to carry. Release the need to control. Release the need to impress. Release the need to prove. Release the need to fear every uncertain tomorrow. Walk forward with courage. Work with excellence. Love with an open heart. Speak with honesty. Rest with gratitude. And no matter what life places before you, meet it with a quiet mind and a steady heart. Because the strongest people are not those who control the world. They are those who have learned to master themselves. Live detached. Live wisely. Live courageously. Live freely. Because the moment you stop clinging to everything outside you, you finally discover that the freedom you were searching for has been within you all along. Closing. Final challenge. You have reached the end of this audiobook, but your real journey begins now. Remember this truth. Pressure is not your enemy. Attachment is. Every fear, every disappointment, every emotional storm grows stronger when you refuse to let go. But every time you release the need to control, to impress, to prove, to force, you reclaim your peace. Detachment does not make you weaker, it makes you wiser. It gives you the clarity to act without panic, to love without possession, to work without fear, and to live without chains. From this moment forward, when pressure appears, do not ask, how do I escape this? Ask instead, what am I still holding on to? Then release it, again and again. That is the practice. That is the freedom. That is the power. If this audiobook changed the way you think, don't simply admire these ideas, live them. Starting today, choose one attachment to let go of. Take one calm action in its place and repeat that choice every single day. Your future is not built by pressure, it is built by clarity, and clarity belongs to those who learn to let go.